Doing how what the dogs are doing. Hi guys.
Hey everyone.
Hey there.
Howdy.
Hello.
Tom Fox here. I'm shown on here twice. Ellicott Development Company development team. Sean Hopkins is with me as well. There's also an entry for Jeremy Wassel, who's my associate here, who's not in the office, but we're logged in through his desktop. So it's showing a few more bodies that are on the call. But happy to wait however long we need to for you all to join in. It looks like we're short a few, at least a couple potential attendees right now. So we're happy to wait.
Yeah, Tom, I think we could give it a minute, but not much more. We'll just do our introductions because anyone joining will know. So thanks for taking the meeting and setting it up. Who knew the Sugar Bowl would get moved to today? So please don't discuss the score. We all agree on that as a ground rule. Thank you. But I'm Michael Coburn. I live in the Villas, and we've got two other Villa board members and Garrett. I'll let them introduce themselves. Garrett, you want to start?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Garrett Hicks, a fourth generation Point Chautauqua homeowner. And very interested to see, and I appreciate Ellicott Group for doing this and participating in this, and look forward to learning some things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Craig.
Hello. You want me to go, Michael?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. I was finding the mute button. My name is Craig Solek. I've been not quite a lifelong Chautauquan. That would be my wife, and then several generations prior to her. But we've owned on the villas since 2013, honey. Yeah, since 13. She's cooking. I'm off to the side. So
Nice. What do you have?
one of the board members at the villas.
Thanks.
And hi, everybody. I'm Gene Grams. I'm also one of the Villa board members. Also have been a resident of that community since 2013, and currently the treasurer of the board at the Villas.
Great. And then there was possibly someone from Chautauqua Lake Estates who might join. I'm not positive. That was Dan. We just tried to engage that everyone was aware of what's happening. Obviously, you've got a very interested group. I certainly was at the information meeting, and Tom, appreciate the group that you took on there. I think this is a much more appropriate setting to have some collaborative conversations. That's what you'll hear from our end. Obviously, we have some, opinions or points about how we'd like to see this evolve, just given the nature of the impact of the villas, and obviously from Garrett's point of view, Point Chautauqua, and particularly with the maps you're showing, the downhill position that we hold as a neighbor first and foremost, presents some concerns. But I would say that, the ultimate thing is whatever gets developed or goes in, at the end of the day, when it's up and running, we want it to be successful. So whether that's a restaurant or, a grouping of homes or whatever, but we want to be good neighbors and get along. And I do want to acknowledge up front, just based on the two drawings you're showing now, I was impressed at the changes you made to that initial building in the north end of the development, reducing it by a third, reducing its height, listening to what the folks who were pretty vocal at Building M had to say, and giving them that bit of buffer. So also changing the name right off the gate after the August feedback. So I get that you're willing to work with the group. And then you saw, hopefully I sent over the points that were on there. I do think, just for clarity, Sean is your legal representation. Is that correct?
Yeah,
that is correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
I didn't let you introduce yourself.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Sean, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yourself, Sean.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Sean Hopkins from Hopkins, Storage and McCarthy. I'm the outside counsel for Ellicott Development, but Tom and I have been working together for his whole career,
which is now 20 years at Ellicott. And yeah, we've had Sean and I have done some great projects together. We've collaborated well. So always enjoy working with Sean. Makes the process a lot smoother. And I just want to say, Mike, to your comments, this is something we recognize, the fact that we are early in the process. We've tried to engage early with the August meeting, which was a big meeting, a big setting, a lot of information, a lot of comments to hear in a large setting, which was a challenge. But we are early in the process here. We're working through a long list of approvals. We want to work together. We want to be good neighbors. So we're working towards that end. And I appreciate that you recognize some changes already that we've made in shrinking up that north building, shifting it uphill, shifting it away from CLE and from your development as well. You obviously have a very unique and great property with the villas, with you said 20 units altogether, I think. You've got one thing I did highlight in these two images, obviously the before or the August plan on the left, and then our current amended plan on the right hand side. Certainly may not again be a final plan, but we're working hopefully towards something that works. On that right side illustration, just diagrammatically, I marked out the rough setting of your units in red, where the 20 units sits collected there along the water's edge. And then I thought it appropriate as well to highlight the yellow area, which is not the entirety of your land buffer between us, but more or less the area that is dominated or contains a pretty substantial and mature growth of trees, I think, which is important, as well as establishing or recognizing an existing buffer that's there and quite substantial, I think. And what also happens in that area, based off the studies that we have and the surveys that we have, the way the grades work, and the additional drops that happen there through that yellow space creates some further privacy when your units sit down closer to the water. In this current plan, between your units and our nearest units are about 400 linear feet. That north building alone was pushed about 100 feet further up the hill and obviously decreased in size as well. So just want to highlight a couple of things. You notice a couple of changes we made too with some of the positioning of those townhomes in that lowest row. I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but specifically this unit, shifting that down. Again, the idea being that this entire area here, it's very diagrammatic at this point, but this becomes an area where we have some underground, water type retention, part of our bioretention system that is entirely absent on the property and the 35 acres today. Everything just sheet drains down that golf course slope. Obviously, certainly. Certain pesticides and other products were used on those grounds that will not occur in the future with residential development. So that's definitely a positive. But also just the introduction of a significant and tiered bioretention system that'll happen, from East Lake up all the way down this property, that'll collect and treat stormwater, that will hold stormwater. It should substantially reduce, in considering the additional impervious surface that would be introduced by the project, it should still result in a reduction in any sort of runoff that would occur down past and across your property down to the lake. I just will note too, Sean and I, we've been having other conversations with neighboring communities. We have had some engagement with CLE since the August meeting. We also did have a conversation with the Point Chautauqua neighborhood as well recently in the last month. That was a good, productive conversation as well, hearing some of their concerns. So without further ado, I think maybe the best approach here, Michael, is if you want, I know you did send your list today of an agenda. Do you want to lead into those specific 5 or 6 items, and then we can have a conversation about each?
Yeah, let's do that. That would be great. I appreciate it. And the first one we want to do is kind of just have you, as we've moved since August, and you think about what this development is and what it looks like, maybe as it's written in the thing, just what's your pitch on buyers, potential buyers, residents, for what this is and what it will be, and then maybe have that come into the potential use of the larger building and the units that are there, and we'll just kind of hear how that goes, because that's something that we're very interested to know as neighbors. What would we expect in terms of events or noise and this sort of thing?
Yeah. So, with and you mentioned the change in the name too. Sunset View it's been Sunset View. We did take off the Point Chautauqua tag, as that was a point of contention
Yeah.
at the meeting. I think raised by the maybe the Point Chautauqua.
Point Chautauqua,
Streets
yeah,
in
the
the south.
historical.
Right?
Yeah.
Which I was kind of, if we could have a little sidebar that quick, I know we were happy to change the name. That's fine. I know you guys refer to yourselves as the Villas at Point Chautauqua, or no?
I think
And
it's
then
at Chautauqua Point. It's not the same
Right.
naming convention.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the golf course was Chautauqua Point. So that, there was no ill will,
Sure.
that we meant by that. It was just, we thought that's what it was. So, but again, we've made that change. At a high level, what we're talking about here is, a high quality residential product and a number of different, a range of typologies with what's now a smaller mixed use building with maybe some more traditional condo type units with units one over the other vertically and side by side, but in a much smaller package now, about 20, you expect maybe 20 to 24 units on that north end. Very similar to a structure you might see immediately to north at CLE. The townhomes obviously providing that sort of shared wall or party wall type illustration, uphill, downhill type units, a range of sizes, ranch style units with walkout lower levels, multi-story uphill type units, and a good range of, primarily 2 and 3 bedroom units in that area. And then on the single family end, on that south end of the development, I'll just zoom out on the right hand side one here. We've got the 32 home lots on the south end. A little bit, so the density, on the north end being, a bit higher density, medium in the middle area, mid-town area, and then the south end, a little bit lower density with those units. And those are geared more towards call it a patio home style typology, a little bit tighter of a footprint, narrower frontage, longer depth style unit with those maybe not so much as a more traditional Point Chautauqua style single family detached residence to the south of us, bigger footprints, bigger properties, a little bit more condensed unit with those. But with this entire project, obviously, high quality residential units and a good range of those, but internalized, amenities, right? So we're talking about having a pool, as I know you all have a pool as well on your property, maybe pickleball or tennis courts, some nice outdoor spaces, walking trails. We don't show a lot of that internal wayfinding and walking trails in this plan as it's developed to date. It's still very diagrammatic, but the intention is to have a lot of internalized activities. When we talk about the name Sunset View, and I think the discussion as we talk about with waterfront access, our intentions through our HOA approvals with the state and through our marketing efforts as those developed, once we get the various approvals from the state to be able to market these units, once the HOAs are approved, the idea is that those waterfront amenities would really be downplayed. In its namesake as Sunset View, as well as we do now, and being a part of the site for a couple of years, that the views, specifically the sunset views from this property, are incredible. Not everybody, seeking a residence or vacation property in the areas is wanting to have a boat or wanting to have waterfront access, and we're hoping to capitalize on that market, as well as having some really really nice embellishments on site that folks can enjoy.
Okay, let me redirect you, Tom. I appreciate that. One, I don't know what it's like, but I don't know how many of those properties to the further south you go actually get sunset view with the mature trees you called out that obviously aren't changing on our property. I don't know if that's something you've looked at. And it's a little bit of a tangent down to point 3, where at least I think I'm aware that you're open to possibly selling off some of the further south land. And don't know if you want to come to that later, or if that's an active, valid offering, or just discussions at this point.
We can jump around for sure. I know there have been rumors of folks or certain groups. I think groups that may have been interested to buy the property before we were even involved, right?
Right.
That have come back to the table, and there are no formal offers on the table, so it may just all be hearsay. I think that if those things did materialize, we would listen to that.
Yeah.
I can't say much more than that at this point.
That's
Obviously,
fine.
when we get to this level, we've spent a decent amount of money at this point, but at this level, we started to, place future value on these areas as well, right? With single family home sales, townhome sales, so on and so forth. So, in consideration of those, potential loss of development value, we'll have those conversations if and when they do materialize, right?
Okay, let me come back to this original question on the venue down there. Is there conference rooms? I know you have a restaurant potential, going in there, which we'd all love a successful restaurant. Unfortunately, we drive past 3 abandoned restaurants from Bemis getting to this property on that highway. So there is some concern that you build something beautiful, but after 3-month seasons, people can't make a go of it in the restaurant industry. Obviously, that's not our issue. The issue is now you've got something that isn't there. So once and if it goes in, you'll certainly find support. It's not like we're going to boycott something. We want to be thriving and successful. A more detailed question is, what's the capability for hosting weddings, events, and things like that? And is that foreseen in the use of the project?
That's really going to be up to the end user of that space. It's not something that we're going to internally run that restaurant space. It's going to be a landlord lease scenario. It could be, especially with outdoor areas, it could be an opportunity to host certain events. We're not talking about a huge restaurant space. We're talking about 5,000 to 6,000 square feet in that range. Obviously, that's internal space. You're going to have quite a bit more area outside to potentially have some events. We'd be limited as well. We've got a good amount of parking here, but, I don't think we have a conference center here per se.
Okay.
We are going to have a small meeting room that'll be associated with the HOA. What happens if you picture roughly the ground floor of this structure, and the lower level that would be the walkout level on the downhill side, that's where the restaurant will take place on maybe 2/3 of that floor, separated potentially by some storage area for the residents in that building. And on the very south end, some internal amenity spaces for the community, for the
Could be a
residential
fitness
unit.
center or whatever, right?
Yeah, it might be a community room, fitness center, maybe a sauna, those sorts of things. Things that you might imagine adjacent to a pool area.
Sure.
But nothing too elaborate. No 10,000 square foot meeting spaces, stuff like
Okay.
that.
Ballroom, yeah.
No.
Why the request for a 500 square foot apartment as opposed to the, whatever the right term is, the current ordinance or whatever it's called at 800 feet? That just seems awfully small for a condo.
Yeah, so that just we're looking for some flexibility here at the outset. And obviously, we don't have developed plans of this building interior yet. But in our experience, and we've done several thousand residential units in my career here, in a very small percentage, we will sometimes end up with your maybe studio style, condensed 1 bedroom type unit, adaptable unit. And we just, those units can end up pretty easily below 800 square feet. And if it's a unit that might be geared towards a shorter term occupancy, we want to, not something so small as a hotel room at 300 square feet. We didn't think that was necessary, but something, below 800, still livable space, but just another type of product to offer that we thought in this mixed use building could potentially be attractive.
Okay.
Again, not in a high percentage. Our ratios are typically going to be more geared towards a 2-bedroom style unit, something probably in the low thousands, 1,200 square feet.
I mean, that does seem more appropriate for families and people who are likely to be interested in this space. And there is a concern about the short-term rentals. Chautauqua Lake Estates allows it, but it has been problematic for them with disruptions. It's usually a couple individuals that it doesn't get executed correctly. In the villas, we feel like the community and the neighborhood aspect is really important. And so we've essentially written our bylaws to make it either sponsored rentals or you have to rent for a month at a time, which is pretty much going to make that a non-activity. And we're really happy with what that does for our community. We know everyone who's walking up and down our 800 feet of lakefront and that sort of thing. So that's why we raise it. I want to come back to the last point about asking about the signage and the wayfinding. Obviously, we have no expectation, nor should we be thinking we're going to use these amenities. Therefore, Sunset View community, and that's highly appropriate. But I'm curious at that north end, what kind of additional screening or signage or something that makes it clear that when you're down there at the waterfront for Sunset View, it's not okay to take a stroll 800 feet down the lakefront. Excuse me, I just have to step away, but I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And again, this is very diagrammatic illustration at this point, at this level. But we can certainly approach screening. I'm not personally familiar with the grading in this immediate area. I have not been down on standing in this area. So what can be done potentially with
swale or something,
moving dirt, right, or those opportunities. And I don't think anybody wants a fence, right? I mean, that's not something you want to look at.
I think that's where something clever can be done. It's a very unapproachable area right now. Obviously, when your team gets into it, they'll have to
it's certainly overgrown.
Elevated. So yeah.
Yeah, we've got some photos from kayaking in this area, getting on the water and looking up, and it's a lot of overgrowth, obviously, but some sort of natural buffers. This is this specific. I'll call attention to this. This was not there before.
Yeah.
Zoom in on these two. We had a few trees, but we've
Yep.
it doesn't need to be this, but something more towards the end game of good mix of trees and screening, and maybe some playing with the grades a bit down there to accommodate.
That would be a strong request from us, just to demark it. And by the same token, we're not to be having our residents think that's a great place to go for a walk up there. And right now you can't because of the various things that are there. But if it opened up, good neighbors, but it's also important that we kind of respect each other's amenities and the like. So I think that's great. Let me just pause. Any of the folks on the call want to make any things on the points we've covered so far?
I appreciate Tom, Sajin, just appreciate everything you're sharing. And this is my first listen to this. I was not able to attend the other meeting. My initial question really comes down to price per square foot, right? So if you're going to sell a range of properties, different sizes, et cetera, do you sort of have an average price per square foot? Just so I'd love to compare that to what we've seen, for example, villa properties sell for, just as a point of comparison.
What are you guys generally seeing for sales per square foot nearby?
I mean, it's been a range. I don't know if Michael, you were probably one of the most recent to buy.
Oh yeah, I paid a very nice price for price per square foot. I think we have 2,500 square feet, and it was like $650,000. But
okay.
It's really a scarcity of property on the lake. That's the difference in position here.
Well, Tom, you can chime in, but nowadays, it's tough to bring anything in, less than $2.50 to $3 a square foot. It just is.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's certainly in the last 5 years, the cost to build has gone up and sustained incredibly higher. So I mean, I think that I think our average unit in this space is probably going to be somewhere north of 4, 4 to 5. I think that's what for the last couple of years we've been kind of batting around. We've got a number of different projections that obviously consider different things, and it's a moving target as we have scaled back the development. We got to go take another hard look at that, but I think that we probably end up with new product, with all the amenities we're talking about, somewhere in that 400 to 500 range on average, depending.
I'm slow on the real estate math. So what does that mean?
400 to 500,000, like full sale price. When you're talking 650 on yours, so if you're saying you're 2,500 feet, you're probably 250 a square foot, maybe. So, we're going to be. I don't think our average unit's going to be 2,500 square feet. Probably going to be a little bit under that with average. So, but I'd say it's comparable. We are, in our portfolio, and I think I gave a bit of this synopsis of our portfolio at the meeting in August. But we're typically a market rate to high end residential developer. That's our sweet spot. We like putting out a nice product. High level of finishes. We're talking with a really talented architect in here and doing high end, mid to high end residential. Has some great product out there that he's done, and a lot of it, especially in these similar geographies to the topography really that we've got on this site is very interesting. It has a great potential. So,
Craig, anything from you?
Nothing for me based on our so far progress.
But I would say, Tom, yeah, I think when for our community, I would say, just Craig and Michael, what was Peter? He was,
Even 500,
10.
I thought.
Unit 10. Yeah, I think it was just a little less than 400 square foot. He sold a couple years ago. So again, I think we're talking kind of comparable pricing, right?
Yeah, it will be. I mean, it's going to be that's construction cost nowadays.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, just that helps us set the tone of like, this is going to be comparable, if you will, in terms of the market price, et cetera.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is, I mean, that's, and I don't know if we didn't strongly communicate that at the meeting in August. And I think, hopefully, I don't know if you've all been to our website for the project, Sunset View CLC. We've got some very early renderings on there, but tries to communicate a feel of the community, a feel of the unit types and the architecture. And, but again, at a very high level at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I only have one other question, and then we can
Go
go
ahead,
back to
Gene.
the agenda. But it really goes to, in the rendering, you see the docks down at, where the old 8th hole was on the golf course. How is that going to work in terms of usage? And, there's a lot of residents for a relatively small amount of water access, at least in terms of lake frontage. What's your vision on how that works?
Yeah, so these are, in combination, the restaurant may have some use of those as well. And this is something that we've been talking with the DEC and our Army Corps about to understand what can really be done down here. Understanding that that's going to be limited because of the limited amount of frontage, a little over 180 linear feet. I think that from a marketing standpoint, that's a strong strong factor there that I started to talk about with really downplaying. This is not going to be a place where obviously we're going to offer 50% of the units a private boat slip. It's not going to be that, unlike what you all have. I assume that each unit maybe has a boat slip, and maybe CLE is the same way. It's not going to be that.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna market it that way because it wouldn't be honest, obviously, because of the limited area. So people have access down there. Again, like we're talking about, we'll make an effort to really screen and make that area nice and private, and for us and for everybody else around us. But we're certainly obviously limiting the number of slips and the amount of space to collect down there. I think will help limit any sort of crowding and that sort of thing. Right?
Are you targeting that to be permanent? Or because our docks, most of the docks, as you may know, come out every year and sit on the shore.
Yeah, I think that they will be pulled. I'm familiar with. I've been visiting Chautauqua for a little over 25 years, more in the Bemis Fluvanna area, and I know that. I mean that area of the lake floods quite a bit. It's a little bit more shallow, and I know they pull the docks every year down there. But it's probably going to be something that gets pulled. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, two things about that. One, it's a rocky bottom.
Okay.
Two, we're on the eastern shore with the westerly wind. So I don't think you're going to be able to have anything permanent there.
Okay, thank you. That's very good to know.
So,
So
Tom, we just had that discussion with our engineer.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. With your dock structure, do your verticals stay in year round, or do those all get pulled as well?
Stanchions, we have to pull them. There's no way they would survive the winter.
Right. Got it. Okay.
Everything comes out. And an interesting point, because I experienced it and Craig saved me, but we have like a guest dock area, which is kind of how I envision most of these slips to be, like people wanting to come up and go to the amenities as far as restaurant, whatever is accessible to the public. And the docks we have cannot support a boat tying off on it. Every boat we have has a lift. And the reason is because they just sit on the lake. And so you're coming into that dock, and Craig had to try and grab the pontoon boat I rented from across the way. So I think just be aware that these docks are not made for boats to come up unless you're able to drive seasonal pilings, which they do in these other places where it's a sand or silt bottom. But I think that was Craig's point on the rock bottom. It just creates some considerations for you on how those docks can be set up and utilized.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful, and certainly as Sean just talked about too, this is we're at this level of the planning and development that we're at with the town right now, and going
Yep.
through high level stuff. We haven't really dug into the level
Okay.
of engineering later on that'll come.
Just good to know. And it was my
Yeah.
first question at the August meeting. You said it then, and I don't see any change in that plan now. It looks like no boat ramp. People aren't going to be launching their boats there. There's other boat ramps available across the
Yeah,
lake.
I don't think the grades would make that possible here. It's too steep. Yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
I think we said that at the
You
meeting.
did say that. I just
Yeah.
continuing as it evolves. I'd rather not see it evolve to, jet skis getting launched and things like this if we've got that challenge. We could shift gears if that's okay for the group, which it got asked at the meeting and you mentioned it, but just something to continue remembering, which is that Villa Drive, which is a road we maintain today on your land. I don't know if you want to zoom over to the access
Yep.
drive
Yep.
for us.
Yeah, there you go. So
If things go forward the way it's planned, I heard a verbal commitment that you guys would improve that road and take over maintenance of it. Don't know that we can hold your feet to the fire yet, and that's a ways off, as I know you're phasing this. But just can we talk a little bit about how we should think about that, particularly as a board with capital expenses and maintaining that road and thinking about the future?
yeah, is that the only way in your development, or can you get over a lookout too?
No, it's the only way in and out.
Only way in, right? Yeah. So we did look at following that was a great ask at the meeting in August, and after that meeting we did go back and pull the easement and take a look at that. So we do intend, as was noted in that meeting, to improve this roadway. It needs to be improved, just
Widened,
bring it
et
up to
cetera.
code. Yeah,
Yep.
widened a bit. I think it's 16 feet now, maybe. So we need to widen it a bit, and some new utility infrastructure, that sort of stuff. So, that's obviously all our cost. Nothing to you all. When it comes to maintenance, the way the easement is written, it's really silent to maintenance. So it would be really whoever's using it to date. You all have been maintaining it as you've been the exclusive users of it. But as we become users of it as well. If this is the plan here that does make it to construction in the future, and we're sharing upon that, the use of that road, there'd be some sort of a shared maintenance agreement, I guess, in terms of that. Any sort of regular maintenance, routine maintenance, plowing, whatever needs to happen, we could share in that cost.
Okay, good.
And the reality is, we pulled that easement, looked at it. It's not particularly very comprehensive.
Right. And we're not, at least I'll speak for myself. Craig's probably, everyone who's driven that crooked road for so long, they probably love the character of it. There's nothing sacred to me about that road, where it is, how it operates, if that's something that helps all of us. And again, I'm not really speaking for Gene and Craig in this situation, but it is an awkward road. It was made to go around holes.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so I think that hopefully that answers the question. I think that would be it would lighten your obligation in the future with them coming on as users.
For sure. And then the other one I had, 0.5, was just about that martini glass, and if it made sense or was something to have a separate discussion on a swap for that additional buffer. You mentioned we already have it, but it might be something interesting if you come down and look at lots, 18 through 20. Or I haven't even thought about where, but anything that would create more buffer from us and allow you to do that. And I don't know the details. My understanding and loose understanding with my fellow board, we could look it up. I believe that was a green space we were required to put in, given the development we did down below at the lake. So whatever it would move toward, if that were able to be done or happen, my belief is we are still required to not build on it. It's not buildable land.
Yeah, so that was part of. We learned this through the town when we started having conversations very early on with the town about this project. When we planned that your development as well has a planned unit development approval, a PUD approval. I think it's from the 80s, maybe.
Yep, late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, so identical to the process that we're going through now. And yeah, that was your commitment to requirement for 40%. Uninterrupted green space, I think it was. I think that's what got you there.
Okay.
Interesting that it was allowed to be on just a completely, separate piece. But yeah, so I mean, that's an interesting proposal. Certainly, we've got, it's tough. with the holidays here, we haven't had gaps in communication with ownership and with our development team, but something I can talk with them further about to see. I mean, it's not it's probably not a ton of, I don't know what it says, 0.7 acres there. So probably 30,000 square feet or so, 35,000. I don't know what, maybe that's comparable to these few lots. It's an interesting conversation that we can continue to have. I've got to talk with some others that
Sure.
have a vested interest here before we go.
Well, we're certainly welcome to have follow-up meetings regarding this and all of that. So I think that will be something to look at. Same
Yeah.
with when you go to think about the road. Again, I think that's a little bit as you phase this thing. I think you mentioned in the meeting, we're 2 or 3 years out on certainly on phase 3 in my head, but I'm not an economic expert on how the market demand will come in for this.
Right.
And Michael, just to add to this comment, I like this part of the conversation because I think it could be mutually beneficial. But another way to think about Tom is if for some reason the swap wouldn't make sense, would you guys want to maintain that to a certain standard? Because right now we just let things grow. I know it's green space, but is there some things you could do? So just think about like how it's impacting your development.
Right. Yeah. Certainly, if it's just overgrowth, it doesn't add value to units here and so on and so forth. So yeah,
Sure.
I think there's some, whatever it is, I think there's some future discussion to be had about this in some fashion. Either it's moving or whatever. So
And Tom,
Yeah,
did we determine who owns that? Is it owned by the town?
It's owned by the
remember.
villas.
It's owned by- it's okay.
it is owned by the villas. Okay.
Well, that's helpful. That's good to know. Okay.
I thought it was mentioned at the meeting in August that, or maybe it was some other correspondence I had through one of the villas owners in the past about potential future plans with that property for you all, or not. Maybe it might have just been hearsay. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, you don't use it for anything now. Nobody walks on it. Nothing.
It's our green space.
Yeah, but it's just not yeah. I don't think I mean, the way I've noticed in the past, it doesn't seem like it get really traversing.
No, we have endangered bats living there. That's the only thing to be aware of. Whoops. No.
Nice.
It was a dangerous place to walk while it was a golf course.
Yeah,
We planted a couple
sure.
trees there, yeah. But basically it fit between holes 1, 2, and 3.
Nice.
I think the golf course was there well before the villas, and I think that's how it developed that way.
Got it.
Let's go ahead. I mean, I made 0.6, which is more just we want this to be economically viable and succeed and not get to a certain point and not succeed. And particularly the only amenity that would be available to us as neighbors is the restaurant. So just hoping you've got someone with the wherewithal to make a go of it. Because it is disappointing to me as only a 2-year resident to, see the watermark not be available, to see buildings don't even have a sign on the front of them on Highway 430 there that you go by. The springs closed, etc. I mean, Bemis Point is pretty vibrant. It gets a pretty good crowd and has some deep pocketed tenants there. But that's the concern is restaurants being able to succeed, particularly ones that tend to wind up with a 3 or 4 month season.
Yeah, certainly it's the economy in the past 2, 3, 4 years has been rough on that and the retail industry. I can say that we have at least 2 interested prospects, both viable restaurateurs that have an interest in this space to operate something. So there is interest out there already. From a perspective of being, economically or successful with this project, certainly that's in our best interest as well. We've got a very long-standing successful track record in projects. Gosh, there's such a range of different development project types.
Do you have any you could list off right now, but that are similar that we could take a look at and see that success?
Yeah, if you go to our website, I mean, it's all on there.
And you covered that pretty extensively at the info meeting, which I thought was good for people to know. Obviously, the takeaway for people that were being critical were like, well, that's Buffalo, we're not Buffalo. So this is why you're getting the density kind of questions, and the things that I think are of most concern to us is having it kind of match the surroundings. So I don't have any doubts about your guys' fiscal capabilities and designing something that would work.
And I think noteworthy too, and we, I had that slide up at the meeting in August that in terms of a phased approach, I think that's really a key factor in us not oversaturating, what the market can handle there. We've come up with, placed right in with the PUD application is a preliminary phasing plan that we feel is digestible based on the market as we understand it right now, and where we see things going in the next couple of years. But that allows us to bite this off in chunks and develop it in the appropriate over time and at the appropriate level that the market can handle. So yeah, your concerns for economic viability are shared. That's something that we're thinking about. We're taking a very calculated approach to this as we do with everything. So.
No, that's good. Other questions or thoughts? I think the conversation is good. Obviously, it's progress. I'm planning to be involved in the city process of the meetings, and just stay tuned with what's happening, and really making sure that the hillside, like you mentioned, with the pervious surfaces going in, really we don't get a torrential drainage issue. I don't know if there's how that works or how far you are in that process. Do you get curbs and in the ground sewers and all that stormwater management as part of what's required to put in these, like for instance, the townhomes?
As we go through the seeker process, and Sean, you'll elaborate on this as well. Though at this level, there's a draft plan that's put together by our civil engineer Chris Wood, Carmina Wood Design, but there'll be a pretty more robust, I guess, say a stormwater management plan that would be due to the town prior to approval of seeker. So that'll be a process we're going through over the next couple months here. But again,
no, and then ultimately, Tom, it's important to note that all of that technical documentation needs to be reviewed and approved, and it's our understanding, and I think they've already done so. The town, knowing that they don't have the expertise necessary to review a big project like this, they're hiring a consulting engineer to handle that.
Yep. They covered that at their December meeting. You're right. The only other consideration, my understanding is this golf course was pretty cheaply operated. So the amount of fertilizer that these homeowners might put on their lawn could be double what the golf course actually did to maintain that property. So it would be nice to see HOA guidelines, if this does go forward, that very much restricts the use of these things that are going to go straight into the lake.
Yeah, and a lot of the I think it's important to note with the HOA too, the majority of common areas, except for some portion of the single family home lots maybe, will be maintained by the management company, right? So easy to a substantial
put some governance there.
Everything above you and all this stuff will be all maintained by one group, right? So
well, if you could make a note of that, because I don't believe we use any fertilizers on our property, or if we do, I'll start to work with the board to stop it, because that's so bad for the lake, which is the most precious resource that drives the value of any of these properties. If you would make a note of that when you form up the HOA, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Okay. I don't have anything else. I appreciate the time and the engagement and your responsiveness just in our inquiries. So I'll leave it open to the group now.
Would you be able to discuss more about the second phase, and then particularly backing up against 430? And I remember in a meeting talking about there will be no obstruction of view as you're driving by on 430, and how I know they're 1 and 2 stories, and how that'll work.
Those 6 units up next to 430 particularly, right? Because they're fairly close.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be obviously a change or effect on the existing views from 430. These do sit, I mean, the grades are a little bit flatter up here. The way these units sit a bit off the road, a little bit downhill from the road, they and again, mixing in where we're going to have our single-story units potentially up there as opposed to 2-story units, because we're going to have a mix. And you can see that in some of our renderings on the website too, a mix of ranch-style units and multi-story units. That may be the placement of those types of structures up there. I know that, just along 430 today, there's a pretty mature tree line along the roadway already today that does block views. I think there, for the few homes that are across the street here, there's some pretty mature trees here that block those views already. Certainly different in the winter months. I think they're mostly deciduous trees. So, we're trying to stagger these units to give view shed through those units. Obviously, still a combination of where those roof lines end up and a bit downhill grade from the roadway. Certainly, it's going to change the view, but there still will be views of the lake, coming along 430 here, looking out, through. So, and that's the last phase, right? So we're going, phase one's a combination of the multifamily piece here and the amenities, and then maybe the lower townhomes, and then we go into phase two and phase three at the highest end, and those phases for the townhomes graduate up from roughly 40 units to 7 units to 70 rather, up to the maximum at the top as those phases continue. And then this development down here. Again, we mentioned in the August meeting where we would bring in a general contractor and manage the construction of all of this north and middle development work. We've had conversations with a couple, 2, 3 home builders. I don't think it's something that would be split between multiple home builders, given the number of lots. But this is the area where we may bring in a separate partner, a home builder, established, well-known home builder that could handle those lots, and they're really set up to do that sort of development where we're more geared towards the multifamily type work on the mid and north end.
And how many of the lots need that exception from the 10,000 square foot to the 8,000?
Hold on one second here. Sorry. Let me just move this. There we go. Say that again. I'm sorry.
So how many of the single family home lots where the whatever it's called, the rules and regulations or what?
Yeah, the minimum lot area. Yeah. So
like 10,000, and you've requested an exception to 8,000. How impactful would it be if they held you to the 10,000?
We lose a number of lots there. It's really, it's more these probably 2 through 6, and then some of these here along Lookout are the smaller lots that we've got in there. I think it's noteworthy, and as we talked about your PUD that was used in establishing the villas development, your numbers are actually lower than what we're asking for in terms of lot area, setbacks, and all that stuff. Your lots are about 5,000 square feet in size. Your setback, your lot frontages are tighter, about 50 to 55 feet, where we're asking for 65 or 60 feet rather. So just for a comparison, because all intents and purposes, I think your development are really detached single family homes, right?
That's 5 townhome units and 7 single family homes.
So 5 townhome units at the north end, and then your single families down at the other end. Yeah. So, so just I don't think I think it's again out of character. And talking about density too, I mean, we're doing the math, 194 units over this almost 36 acres. We're about somewhere around 5 units an acre. For comparison, I think you all with this big area here, obviously you've got quite a bit of land there in the buffer. You're about maybe 3.5 units per acre. CLEs would be higher density than what we're proposing here today. They're about 7 or 8 units per acre, based on what they've got on that property. So I think we're comparable, and we've kind of fit within what's around us. The least density, obviously heading towards the south, towards the point. Those are much bigger parcels, bigger properties, more spread out. And that's really why, and I explained this back in August too, why we kind of developed this plan the way it was, putting our lower density stuff towards the south end as we try and transition to the neighborhood that's to the south.
No, that's fair to use actual facts when you have the conversation. It's kind of like the Chautauqua Lake Estates not wanting you to build a multifamily, multi-story building when they've got 15 on their property. So I take your point.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Gene or Craig? Andrea?
I'm all set. I appreciate, just the open discussion.
Okay. Well, you can reach out to me for the villas. Everything we talk about, we'll bring back to the board. Our president, Peter, couldn't make this meeting, but and we have one other board member, but we definitely have the support and the voice of all of our residents in the villas. And, looking to just make it as good as it can be. So the more buffering, the more things that will help us do that, and the signage, et cetera. And, you know, we don't want to have the residents of Sunset View have an expectation of being able to walk downhill apart from that 180 feet plus of lakefront that you've got. So the more we do to drive that, the healthier the relationships will be in my mind.
Absolutely. And I'll just say too, I think just want to thank you for taking the effort to consolidate, you know, views and input from your community and have, it certainly you've got probably the smaller number of units here than the others, but the effort to try and consolidate the thoughts and the concerns is always great for us to be able to have a good, maybe a single point of contact, call it, and understand what the concerns are off the bat. So that's been helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and then I want to speak, Sean. You know, basically, preliminary meeting today. We still got a long ways to go, and obviously, we're very open to continuing the dialogue. So, you know, some of this stuff will, you know, there'll be some modifications, there'll be some additional information. We're willing to share that with anyone. We're just trying to be open book here.
Yep. Nope, that's perfect. We appreciate it. So for me, the real potential points or takeaway are to, for Tom, you to go and talk to some folks and think about what possibilities, we call it the martini glass, present, just for something contiguous that really, you know, makes a little more sense and might even give you a different lot option there. Don't know. It's a minor point, but the fertilizer and the general description of how this land should be maintained through the HOA, I think would be important. And then finally, just the swales, signage, wayfinding to make that demarcation between our lakefront property clear would be the other one. And then we'll just be with you through the process and keep the conversation going.
Perfect.
If I could add one more point.
Oh, go ahead.
Behalf of the point Chautauqua, I think that the roadway planned on Lead Avenue right off 430 is a big contention of ours. So if possible to have the entrance only be off 430, that would be a huge thing for our neighborhood.
You're talking about this, Garrett?
Yes, I am.
Got it.
So
Thanks, Garrett.
thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to one further point, because I don't know how the communications go from the town to the residents, but there has been advertised now a January 21st zoning board meeting related to this project. There's a couple on the agenda, but just want to make sure you're aware of that.
And that's it, Tom. That's it. We didn't even actually get the notice. We saw it through somewhere else. 3:30.
Yeah. It was 3:30 meeting started. It calls for us to be on at 3:40. So right at the front. Yeah, right after one other project. Yeah.
Come on down in person, Tom.
You know, Sean's going to be there in person. I'm going to be out of the country, unfortunately, but I'll be there for the next meeting after.
The last meeting, I drove 2 hours through a whiteout snowstorm from Cleveland, and I was like, "Hey, let's make this a Zoom call." So we may need in the winter.
And Sean and I, we didn't make the town board meeting. And I think, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
We were frightened by the lake effect that was happening between our two towns, and we said, we don't want to get stranded in Fredonia or whatever it may be.
Yep.
So we called in, but
I hear you. All right, I'm going to go watch the Sugar Bowl, and thank you all for the conversation and the process. Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks
you all, guys.
everyone.
Good night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Take care.
My question would have been,
Hold on a second.
Hold on, I'm just logging off.